A couple of guys that I don't think we foresaw being winless this far into the year and struggling. I think it might be a stretch to say struggling, but struggling. That would be two of the big three from last year, Truex and Harvick. Still winless. Harvick had his troubles, even though he did have a fast race car. What do we make of these guys? Is panic in the air in these two camps?
I don't think there's panic, and struggle is a very heavy word to use. I don't necessarily think that those two teams are struggling. I just think they're being outperformed. That we've seen, Penske and Kyle Busch rise to the top faster than Truex and Harvick have been able to. So I don't think it's necessarily them struggling. It's these other teams that are doing so much better and really hitting their marks where they should. And Harvick's, fourth in the standings? So to call that struggling, I think it is a little bit loaded.
They have issues just like the rest of everybody. So I think they'll be turning it around before too long.
I think the big disconnect for me is the fact that you have two Joe Gibbs Racing drivers. One's got 3 wins, one's got 2 wins, and neither one of those people is Martin Truex Jr. For me, I expected more out of that 19 team early this year, and I think that's really the biggest hang-up for me in terms of the big three and who's not performing.
They've been fast, though, and there were a couple races I think you could argue that they should have won if it were not for this, that, or the other. I do think there's probably a bit of a culture shock over at Joe Gibbs Racing, moving them actually into the shop. They were on this island in Denver and kind of had their own vibe going out there. But at the same time, it's like we are still like a little bit early in the race. And I thought last year when we talked about the big three, Martin to me was kind of the outlier of the three. I think Harvick and Kyle Busch were a solid, it's the two. And then we kind of lumped Martin in a little bit later, I felt like. And he never performed as well as Harvick and Kyle Busch, in my opinion. So, when you were like, oh, he went from being in the big three to falling out, he was, again, the outlier of the three to me last year.
And they had, trouble at Bristol, too, that having a loose wheel and a problem with the lug, that was right there before the halfway point. I would have been really eager to see what they could have done.
To me, that's just kind of where, that's pinging on my radar that the 19 team, I thought, they would come out and set the world on fire. But
there's still plenty of time left in the regular season. I wouldn't be too concerned.
Playoffs, we always see teams like
we're almost a quarter of the way through the entire year, though. So, if there's glass half full, glass half empty, which one are you going to choose to look at? You only need one win to make the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
But we know how important bonus points and things like that are.
They're going to win before the playoffs.